Alright, so this will be the second video in the introductory series to the Scottish side drum, and this is going to basically focus on taps, bounces, primarily doubles, and then buzzes. Then we'll briefly cover dead strokes, but those really are not a focus until you're kind of already through all of this video series and then starting to look into grade 4 and other more advanced music. So, starting at our old starting point with, well, the end point of the last video, the start point for this one is correctly holding the sticks. And again, don't hesitate to look back and make sure you're holding the sticks exactly how you'd like to before and after each one of these exercises. So, the simplest one we're going to start working on are just taps, which is nothing more than getting one single tap off of a stick, touching it to the pad, and being able to do so exactly when you want it. So, we can try to make this super mechanically complicated and analyze every muscle movement, but generally speaking, just use your arm to bring the stick down just a little bit, have it nice and relaxed, and just let the stick bounce and catch it before it comes back down one more time. Same thing on the left. A little bit of arm motion, start the stick down. We just catch it before it gets a chance to come back in contact with the pad again. So for single taps, that works just fine. Now we can even start alternating these. Tap, 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 tap. Eventually at speed, those can become actually single stroke runs, but for now we're just working on the mechanically simple, just taps. Next comes actually bouncing the stick, or just repeating taps. At different speeds, this actually has a lot of different meanings. At a slower speed, you can just repeatedly do the same tap motion over and over again. But as we start going quicker, we no longer have the opportunity to completely catch and trap the stick in between. Instead, what we're relying on is letting the stick actually bounce a little bit away, which is actually going to either peel these three fingers away on the right stick, or on the left, it will actually peel the thumb up with the stick and use that. And then all we're doing is simply pressing the stick back down and trying to bring the stick back down exactly when we want to. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then when we're done, just catch the stick. Same thing on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And simply catch it. So with these groups, which we'll look in a little bit more detail on the next video, we can select a lot of different numbers of bounces in between. But simply put, the number of bounces is not nearly as important as being able to actually sustain bounces over and over again, which actually would enable us to stop at any given time just by catching the stick. But if we can have even, uniform, same volume and same amount of time in between bounces, that enables us to play a lot more things later on, especially working back towards what we had started off on the alternating taps. We can start off with the repeated bounces and then start simply interleaving that exact same exercise on the left hand, but slightly offset, interleaving them, and then we're working towards now that single stroke singles movements. And again. And we can also do it starting on the left. Alright, next is actually going to be one of the more challenging things, just because it's not necessarily intuitive how we go about converting just the basic arm movement and rudiment into something continuous, but this is going to be buzzes. So for buzzes, what we're really trying to do is actually something a little bit weird, which is to try and actually run out of bounce energy with the stick. And an ideal buzz, it's hard to distinguish the 7 or 12 different distinct bounces, but the idea is that we end up with just one continuous sounding buzz each time we bring the stick bead down. So to actually achieve this, the motion we're trying to get is bringing down the stick with a little bit of load already placed on, as though we're trying to pull the stick down. But we can do that from the trapped position, basically on the right stick, bringing it up into the butt of the palm, and adding a little bit of pressure here which is basically preloading the stick, and then as we bring the head of the stick down, it'll react pretty quickly, and we'll get a few extra bounces right away. But there's a little bit of a change. So just from here, we'll get a very truncated short buzz, which is an excellent start, but not exactly what we're wanting. Same thing with the left, is that preload. You just add a little bit of pressure with the thumb, nose the stick down a little bit, and again, as we bring that down, we'll get a slightly truncated buzz. Next, what we're trying to do is to elongate that buzz, spread that out over the maximum amount of time so we can get a nice, smooth, long buzz. And to do that, basically, as soon as we feel the stick vibrating from having touched the pad and started buzzing, the moment we feel that little bit of vibration, we can relax and take a lot of the pressure off of the stick. Which then elongates that buzz. Same thing with the left. As soon as you can feel that little bit of vibration through your left thumb, take a little bit of that pressure off. So the explanation for why we're trying to do this is that if we started off at that lower amount of pressure, we would end up with kind of a tap buzz or a tat-tat-tat buzz, where too little pressure up front it's a lot closer to just dropping a ball as it's running out of bounce, is it'll just bounce a couple times distinctly, and then the different bounces start to sound collectively together. But generally, if the stick is coming back above one stick width, it's going to end up sounding a little bit tap buzzy. But if that initial pressure is high enough that we can keep the beat of the stick under that height, then we end up with a pretty contiguous sounding buzz. And then again, the reason we're taking some of that pressure off is to elongate that buzz. Now the purpose of that, we can have short buzzes a lot, but the first goal we're trying to get is a continuous buzz roll. And a lot of times the intuitive, or rather the logical but kind of mistaken impression, is to get a buzz roll, we just have to do a buzz and then just do them very, very quickly. Which is technically possible, but it doesn't actually produce a smooth or continuous roll. Instead, the focus is to drag out each individual buzz and let it completely run out of bounce energy, and to be able to then, and this is really the tricky part and the secret, is to be able to pick the stick back up and get back to that preloaded ready position, and then be able to go from completely out of buzz on the pad or out of buzz on the drum back to the ready position in the amount of time that the other stick is able to buzz. So if we're a little bit snappy about how quickly we can reset, which again is a lot of this technique from before, where we're just picking up the stick, bringing it back, and adding preload, picking up the stick, bringing it back, adding preload. To get a smooth, continuous roll, we don't have to go all that fast. Instead, just a nice, slow, loping triplet we can actually turn into a buzz. Into buzz. And we can start working from there on buzz rolls, which enables us to play the 25-stroke, 3-pace roll-offs, 13-stroke rolls, 9-stroke rolls, 7-stroke rolls, or really any number of continuous rolls. And then, as promised, the last thing to work on is just a dead stroke. This isn't going to really be applicable later, but with these 4 things, it actually encompasses literally everything we play, be it a single tap, a combination of taps, taps of different heights, or buzzes, especially going from buzzes to taps, and finally dead strokes. And a dead stroke is nothing more than a slightly different buzz, where instead of going from a preloaded position and relaxing the stick, instead we go put that preload as high as possible and then keep that stick trapped and deadened and simply place it on the pad. So the goal is not actually to have a very sharp but short buzz, but instead to actually just set the stick onto the pad or onto the drum. And usually these are played with drags, where we'll follow on with another very gentle note, but because we've actually adjusted the pitch of the drum head by placing something on there with a little bit of pressure, we'll get a nice kind of high-pitched poppy sound out of it. But again, the focus on drags is for a lot later. Right now, let's really start working on just nailing down these taps and singles, as well as buzzes. And once we can get continuous buzz rolls, start being able to choose specific skeletons for those rolls, just straight duples or triplets, and be able to count, we can start really working our way into music, starting with the next one.